So girls are still joining us. So, all right. So, what I was saying was that we look into the health effects of the air pollutants. All right. And to begin with, the first thing I pick up here is tobacco smoke, as I said. And tobacco smoke generates a wide range of chemicals, and it is, of course, known to cause cancer. Okay. And this smoke, it not only affects the person who's smoking, but also a person who's close by, right? So it's also affecting what is called the passive smoker. Okay. Okay. Now, apart from this, it also leads to a burning sensation in the eyes, the nose, the throat. Okay. And it can cause irritations. It can cause bronchitis, severe asthma. Okay. And a decrease in the lung function. So the first thing that we've discussed here is we've talked about the tobacco smoke and the related health implications. Okay. Then we talk about biological pollutants. Okay. Now, biological pollutants, you say they're mostly the allergens that cause asthma. They can, or hay fever and other allergic diseases. Going on, you have certain volatile organic compounds. That is the third category of air pollutants. Okay. And the volatile organic compounds, they can cause irritation in the nose, eyes, and the throat. And in severe cases, they can also lead to headache, and they can lead to nausea, a loss of coordination in the long run. Fine. Then you have formaldehyde. Exposure to formaldehyde can lead to irritation of the nose, and it may cause allergies in some people. Okay. So, yeah. So these pollutants, along with them, I think in the previous class we did talk about lead also. So lead also, prolonged exposure to lead, as I said in the previous class, can lead to nervous. It can affect or it can damage the nervous system. Okay. And it can also lead to digestive problems, particularly lead poisoning, or inhaling lead fumes. That is dangerous, particularly to children. Okay. Because it can lead to the impairment, or it can damage the nervous system, leading to poor IQ in small children. Okay. The other substance we talk about is the oxides of nitrogen. All right. The oxides of nitrogen here, this again can cause respiratory problems. All right. Then carbon monoxide, which again, I think last class somebody very wonderfully told us that it can lead to what? Suffocation. Uh, the reason being what? That instead of oxygen combining with hemoglobin, now you have what? You have carbon monoxide combining with the hemoglobin. So it can lead to suffocation, therefore. And it can also particularly, it can affect the developing fetus. So then sulfur dioxide largely is released because of the combustion of fossil fuels. Okay. So this is a pollutant that affects the lungs, leads to lung disorders. Okay. um, like shortness of breath. Okay. In the long term, it is difficult. In the long run, it is actually difficult to ascertain SO2 exposure, as it is, often combined with the what is called the particulate matter, the suspended particulate matter. Okay. And finally, we talk about the suspended particulate matter. The suspended particulate matter, which is usually what? It's like dust, fumes, mist, and smoke, right? So these particles, if they, when breathed in, they lodge in our lungs. Okay. In the lung tissues, and they can cause lung damage. They can cause problems, respiratory problems. Okay. And the uh, these are the health implications largely, and we discussed a few in the previous class as well. Okay. Now, coming to certain situations or certain examples, of air pollution. And one such example I'm going back to 1930s. Okay. In the 1930s, there were 60 people died in Belgium because of a 3-day fog. Okay. And 592 people died in Manchester, England in 1931 during a 9-day fog. Okay. Then you have another instance, which is in 1948. In You have again such emissions, uh, which and atmospheric conditions in USA. They caused in Pennsylvania in USA. They caused a 4-day long fog, and 7,000 people were reported sick, and 20 people died. Okay, and again in the year 1952 in London, that is England, there 4,000 deaths occurred um, because of the poor air quality. Okay, so these are some examples where from the past, where we see how air pollution has resulted in death. Okay, and you could, and as I mean, I would want you to please look up the latest or the current situations, like the Bhopal gas tragedy. Okay, where there was large scale devastation, there was death. Okay, because of the gas that was leaked into the atmosphere, that is isomethyl cyanate, which was released into the atmosphere, right? So you can pick up, like, there have been numerous instances in the past and also in the present times where uh, uh, such gases, which were released or leaked out into the atmosphere, and the kind of uh, problematic situations that they caused, right? So finally, before I wrap up this, once again, we just look into the common air pollutants. Now, if you look at the common atmospheric pollution sources, previous class also I told you about agriculture, how agriculture is also responsible for air pollution, and how burning of the stumps which are left behind, how they, open burning basically, how it results in the suspended part, it adds to the suspended particulate matter and carbon monoxide. Then you can see power generation. Again, that also results in the release of suspended particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, then oxides of nitrogen, volatile organic compounds. Okay. If you look at transport, certainly, that suspended particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, all these are released into the atmosphere. And if you the municipal incinerators, which are used to burn the waste, there again you have what are released is suspended particulate matter. You have sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide, then you have volatile organic compounds, okay, which are released into the atmosphere. Okay, so this is about air pollution. The kind of question that you can sort of expect from this portion is, what do you understand by air pollution? What are the consequences or the effects of air pollution, and give remedies. Fine. So when you're talking about the remedies, we could actually consider both at the individual level and at the level of the government. Okay, what we can do as individuals and what can be done at the government level. So when you are looking at what can be done by the government, you could talk about the governments across the world. They introduce taxes, all right, to they tax the polluting industries, right, with the intention of uh, forcing them to cut down pollution levels, all right. Then the governments are also subsidizing industries where which are coming up with technologies which can help reduce environmental pollution. For example, there's now of course there's this talk of electric vehicles coming up, and of course the governments are trying to promote these. Therefore, they're providing subsidies to units which are engaged in these activities. Okay. So this is it. And at the individual level, what can be done is how you could reduce pollution. So one of the things that you have been hearing from times is what, um, the fact that you should carpool. If there's some people who are going in to the same organization, then they can carpool and go. And you could it's okay, it's good to actually encourage people to travel by bus and bike and things like that. Certainly not these days because of the corona thing. But otherwise, what we say is that if you're using public transport instead of your personal vehicle, I think you're contributing towards containing air pollution. Then the unnecessary, sometimes you must try to see that uh, power wastage should be curbed, should be controlled. So switching off the fans, lights, etc., when they're not in use. And another thing is that recycling and reusing things, that is also going to go a long way in trying to curb environmental pollution. Okay. Because in the manufacturing industries, a lot of pollution is created. So if you are able to reuse and recycle things, like shopping bags and bottles and paper, etc., that also will contribute towards protecting the environment. Okay. So these are the remedies that people can think of. There could be many more which you can add. Then, after having talked about this, girls, we move to the next pollution that we will consider, and that is we're going to talk about water pollution. And for water pollution, again, the way we discussed air pollution, we talk about what is water pollution. So water pollution again is the contamination of the water bodies, that is your lakes, your rivers, your oceans, aquifers, and even the groundwater, and largely by human activity. So that is what is meant by water pollution. And water pollution largely occurs when you have these pollutants uh, which are chemicals or which are substances that contaminate water. They're discharged directly or indirectly into the water bodies without enough treatment to get rid of their harmful compounds. All right. And the pollutants they get into water, mainly we're discussing the human factor here, or is because of the human activities. Okay. Now, any change or modification in the physical, chemical, or the biological properties of water that can have a detrimental consequence on the living things will be, is said to be water pollution. Right? Then you have uh, water. Actually, of course, we all know covers nearly 70% of the land area, right? And so of course it is a very important source for people to and it's of course very important for our survival. And water pollution will thereby affect what is called, I mean, it's going to affect drinking water. It's affecting the rivers, the lakes, the oceans. Okay. And humans have we very pertinently recognized the importance of clean water as the foundation for life. Okay. And there are more and more organizations which are working towards this, working towards creating awareness regarding water pollution, and educating people how to protect and how to restore the waterways, or and how to keep water free from contamination, in order to preserve the water ecosystems. Okay. So we'll first talk about what are the major water pollutants, just the way we did with air pollution. So we'll discuss what are the major water pollutants here. So the first we're going to talk about is called the nutrient pollution. Various types of water pollution first. So the first one we talk about is nutrient pollution. Now, what does nutrient pollution mean? Nutrient pollution means that when you have wastes, in like fertilizers, or you have sewage which contains high level of nutrients, they end up in the water bodies. All right. And these fertilizers or sewage, they encourage the growth of algae in water. And what happens then is that too much of algae, if there is too much algae in water, this algae uses up the oxygen which is otherwise available for One second. Okay, so so if the algae is if there's too much algae in water, it uses up the oxygen which is otherwise or which would otherwise be available for the aquatic animals, right? And this would actually result in the water organisms dying due to the lack of oxygen. Okay. Then we have another kind of pollution, which is the water surface pollution. Okay. Now, the surface water pollution, in fact, the surface water pollution the surface water pollution actually means that the water that is available or which is natural water which is found on the surface of the earth, okay, so which includes your rivers, your oceans, okay, lakes, etc., and hazardous substances which come in contact with this surface water, they can contaminate this water, and they can result in what is called surface water pollution. Then we have groundwater pollution, okay, which means the water that is below the ground. Okay, now groundwater pollution can take place because of a number of chemicals seeping into the groundwater. So we have nitrate uh, nitrates polluting the water. You have arsenic water pollution. All right, so all these kind of chemicals which are, and often in the if you talk about agriculture, what happens is that many a times a lot of these pesticides and chemicals that are added, the fertilizers, etc., they seep into the soil, reach the ground water, and pollute the groundwater. Then you have microbial water pollution also, which is from microbes. For example, you have microorganisms like viruses and bacteria, etc., protozoa, which can cause problems if that water is used. For example, if amoeba is a protozoa, but it is known to cause amoebic dysentery. All right, and you have a number of other waterborne problems also. So if the water is so this is a kind of natural pollution also, okay, which is caused by microorganisms. All right, then you have suspended matter. Okay, so sometimes you have certain chemicals or substances which do not dissolve in water, so they are largely suspended in the water bodies, and some of these suspended particles later on settle down in the water bodies, and they can cause harm, and they can even kill the aquatic animals that live at the floor of the water bodies. Okay, so when we talked about the types of water pollutants, till now we've talked about nutrient pollution, and along with this, I'd like to introduce the term that is called eutrophication. Now, what does eutrophication mean? Eutrophication is basically when we've discussed the fact that when there's too much of algae in water, what happens? They use up the oxygen from the water. And this process is actually, I mean, when you have fertilizers, etc., which wash off into the water bodies, and algae grow on all this, they use up the oxygen from the water. All right, and now less of oxygen is available for the aquatic animals. All right, so this process is called eutrophication. Okay, so the surface water pollution, then I told you about groundwater pollution, then we talked about microbiological pollution, which is sort of natural pollution. Then we said there could be suspended matter which can result in pollution. Then you have chemical water pollution also. Okay, now chemical water pollution, this is a lot of pollutants from the industries as also from the farms, that is agriculture. A lot of chemicals, they end up in water, and these chemicals in agriculture, they are used to control what the growth of insects, weeds, pests, etc., that is in agriculture. And you have metals, various solvents, from the industries which run off into the water bodies, and many a times, the waste from the industries is not even treated, and it is straight away released into the nearby water bodies. So these are poisonous, Fine. And of course, they affect the aquatic life. Okay, it can make them infertile, it can also kill them. Fine. So this is the chemical water pollution. Then you have another kind of water pollution, which is your oil spillage. Okay. Now, um, oil, sometimes you have these oil tanks, ships carrying oil, which can, I would say, because of some accident, this oil can be, it can end up in the oceans. And this is detrimental to the aquatic animals, also to the birds, the aquatic birds. And that's the sea birds also. That's what I'm trying to say, because many a times the oil, it ends up on the feathers of these birds, and causing them to lose their ability to fly. Okay. So one very significant oil accident, or case of oil spillage, was the BP oil spill in 2010. Okay. And I would like you people to please study and hunt a little more material on this. So you would be doing this exercise. You will try to uh, find out more about this. Okay. In fact, I tell you a little bit about this was that over 1000 animals, which means turtles, birds, mammals, they were all reported dead. Okay. And many of them were on the endangered species list. Okay. And those animals that survived the spill, only 6% of them, 6% of those animals were cleaned. They were reportedly cleaned. But scientists and biologists also predict that even these animals, won't be able to survive long, because of the stress caused by pollution. Okay. So these were the types of pollution. We talk about surface and groundwater pollution, and many others, the chemical water pollution, etc. Then, moving further ahead, we have, we look into the causes of water pollution. What are these causes? For example, to begin with, you could talk about industrial waste. Okay. Industries contribute to water pollution, in significantly. Okay. There are chemicals like sulfur, which is a non-metal substance, and it can harm marine life. Okay. So these apart from these, I mean, there are a number of chemicals which are released from these industries into the uh, water bodies. All right. And the next one we talk about is asbestos. Asbestos is known to have cancer causing properties. Okay. So then you have lead and mercury. Again, these are metallic elements, and they can also cause significant health problems in humans and animals. And they are poisonous in a way. All right. We talk about mercurial. I'll give you an example of mercurial poisoning in Minamata disease, which occurred way back in Japan. I'll give you an example as we move on. Then you talk about the nitrates and the phosphates. And nitrates and phosphates, they are found in fertilizers, and these fertilizers are often washed from the soil into the nearby water bodies, where they can cause eutrophication, and which is, of course, problematic for the marine environment. Fine. Oils, as I just told you, is an example where what's happening is that a thick layer of oil, if it forms on the water surface, what it can do is, certainly, because oil doesn't mix up, so there's a layer of oil which will form on water, and this can actually stop the marine plants from receiving sufficient light for photosynthesis, one thing. And it is also for the fish and marine birds, which I just told you. The because of the layer of oil on the wings, these birds, they lose their ability to fly. Then the sewage and the wastewater. So many a times, many a times, in fact, from our homes, the sewage that is collected, so that the process of cooking, laundry, the flushing the toilet, or when you wash your cars, shower, and all these things, the water, where do you think all this ends up? You know, it is, you ideally this is treated, all the sewage is treated before it is dumped into the sea. But in uh, there are instances where this is directly dumped into the water bodies without going through this process of treatment, right? The sewage actually is not treated. Fine. And this can become very, very dangerous to the environment and water bodies. And, it can also lead to deadly diseases also, if this water is not adequately treated before it is flushed into the oceans. Then another reason where you see water pollution, that's the ocean and the marine dumping. Okay, which means what? That every day a lot of rubbish, a lot of waste, be it plastic, rubber, metallic waste, all this is, dumped into the seas. All right. And I'd like to get your notice. Paper takes something like 6 weeks to decompose. Aluminium takes something like 200 years, and glass even more. All right. And when all this waste ends up in the sea, they harm the sea animals, and of course they result in the death of aquatic animals. Okay. Then so these are the major, you could see the reasons, major reasons which are known to pollute water. Next, we could talk about is effect of the effects of water pollution. Okay. What could be, I mean, how the water pollution, how this water pollution affects health? Now, when you're looking into the effects of water pollution, the first thing, of course, we say is the death of aquatic animals. All right. So I've just told you how, because of pollution, uh, you can see that, you come across examples of dead crabs, fish, and seagulls, dolphins. Okay. And many other animals who often wind up on the beaches, and they are killed by the pollutants in water. Then there are certain diseases which are there, like you have certain bacterial diseases like typhoid, cholera. Okay. You have also bacterial dysentery, which can arise as a result of the bacteria that can be there because of the waste, the sewage which we saw, that sometimes untreated waste, untreated sewage is just dumped off into the sea or into the water bodies, and they can cause a number of diseases, certain bacterial diseases, like you have typhoid and cholera, etc. And viral infections also, like hepatitis. Okay. And polio, etc., that can result because of the presence of the virus in the contaminated water. Amoebic dysentery was also one example which I gave you, because of the presence of the protozoa, amoeba, etc., in the water. So these diseases like hepatitis, cholera, dysentery, and typhoid are common waterborne diseases which affect the human population, largely in the tropical regions. Okay. So then lead, we've seen, certain chemicals which I told you, they uh, wash off into the water bodies. Lead, for example, as we've already noticed before, has very damaging effect on the nervous system. Fluoride also, fluoride, if you have people who suppose come in contact with the water that has got fluoride contamination, it can result in the yellowing of the teeth, and it can also damage uh, the spinal cord. Okay. And can result in what is called, another crippling diseases. Okay. Then apart from this, the petrochemicals also, petrochemicals which can contaminate the groundwater. Okay. From the underground petroleum storage tanks. So you have these underground petroleum storage tanks from where you can have petrochemicals which can contaminate the groundwater. Then you also have, as I said, before, that untreated sewage, the industrial affluents. Then you have agricultural waste. Okay, they are also discharged sometimes into your local water bodies, the lakes, the coastal areas, and also the rivers, and endangering the use of these water bodies for even recreation purpose, which means for swimming or for boating, etc. Okay, because you can have uh, pollution to that level. Then the other pollutant that can be seen is like, arsenic contamination. And arsenic contamination is like, an example was that sometime this element was actually found in the districts of West Bengal. All right. And a majority of people who were exposed to this kind of contamination, they were found to be suffering from skin lesions. All right. And but here, unfortunately, or rather, this arsenic was in high quantities, and which was seen to be a natural cause. All right. And the government, of course, was trying to provide an alternative drinking source, and also to look at a method through which the arsenic content from the water could be removed. Okay. And then apart from this, I will look into a few more water pollution. I just will look into other this thing. Wait a minute. Yeah, I was telling you about the Minamata disease. So this Minamata disease, in fact, Minamata is a place in Japan. All right, and here what was observed was that they were using inorganic mercury that was being used in the industrial production of acetaldehyde, right? And this uh, the from the industries, the waste was released into the nearby bay. All right. And this waste, which contained inorganic mercury, this waste was ingested by the organisms. Okay. That is the fish and the other creatures in the sea. They were and then these creatures, they were also contaminated with these with mercury. The fish, they actually suffered from what was called as methyl mercury intoxication. All right. Now this came to be known as Minamata disease because this fish was then used by the humans. All right. And this resulted in what is called the Minamata disease. Okay. Yeah. So the Minamata disease, where what we saw was that the fish were, they were intoxicated with what was called as methyl mercury intoxication. All right. So then, of course, the Japanese government had to step in to look into the matter. But popularly, this event was known as the Minamata disease, and the disease was first detected in the year that is 1956. Okay. Then, apart from this, girls, nitrates also. Nitrates, they also there are issues of nitrate contamination. Okay, you've come across water which has been contaminated by the by nitrate, and this also has serious consequences. on human health. All right. In fact, there was this incident, there was a baby that was brought to the Ram Manohar Lohia hospital, and this baby had actually turned blue. So initially, the doctors thought that there was some problem with the heart. They're probably not able to breathe properly or something. But later, it was found the mother was feeding the child formula milk, so she was using powdered milk, and the water that she was using was from the hand pump. And this groundwater had a high content, nitrate content, all right, which had resulted in the in the health condition of the baby. That was the blue baby, and it was known as the blue baby syndrome. Okay. Then regarding the what can be done to control water pollution. So here, what are the steps or the measures that you can take to control water pollution? So again, at the individual level and at the level of the governments. So at the individual level, I think it's important that you don't throw any rubbish here and there, because ultimately it ends up in the water bodies, and it's always prudent to throw trash in the waste bins rather than just litter it here and there. All right. Then use water wisely. All right. So the moment you don't need water, you need to switch off your tap, um, and see that the amount of water that we're using for the purpose of washing, and that should also be used sensibly. All right. Then another thing is that we should also try to see that we do not throw paint and or chemicals into our drains. All right. Um then when you are thinking of buying more environment friendly chemicals and detergents, okay, which do not create any water issues. And even when you're using chemicals or pesticides for the gardens and farms, one should be careful that you're not there's no such what is called overuse of these chemicals and pesticides, okay, because ultimately all this will run off into the nearby water bodies if you're overusing them. Then as far as the governments are concerned, there are laws and there are regulations. In fact, the NGT, that is the National Green Tribunal, that they've come up with the laws, etc., to see that excess groundwater is also not extracted, because already the groundwater levels, they have already come down significantly. Okay, so I think creating awareness, trying to make people aware of how significant water is, how precious the resource is, and how we need to judiciously make use of this precious resource. So this is about water pollution. Okay, and so normally if you look at a question, from this segment also, you again get a question like, sometimes it's clubbed. You have water pollution which is clubbed together with air pollution, and the question you could be like, uh, um discuss the uh, causes and effects of air and water pollution. Okay, and also give the solutions or remedies, corrective remedies. So this could be there. And since we at this point in time do not know what kind of paper we can expect, given the COVID situation. So if there's a long question, it has to be in this form. And if there are MCQs, then you may, be asked about what are you may be given options, a major water pollutants, which is not a water pollutant. Okay. Or which of these is not an effect of water pollution, things like these. Okay. And again, girls, I would want you to look up the newspapers and things, because a lot of information can be attained from what's happening around you. And you can start collecting that. Keep the newspaper clippings which are relevant to your answers, and you can use them as and when, when you have to prepare for your exams. But please remember to mention the source. All right. And just because there are a number of incidences happening around you which can uh, you know uh, uh, which you can relate to as far as air pollution or water pollution is concerned. Okay. So any other questions that you have? Yes, any questions for, are you clear with what we did today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Uh, as far as the books are concerned, water pollution is something, or pollution in general is something which you will come across in many books. Okay.